Hello there, welcome to News at 10 on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor, and in the next half an hour, you'll get a complete roundup of biggest news from India and around the world, and also the stories that are likely to unfold during the course of the day today. Let us start with the headlines. GST Council to meet, focus on SMEs and exporters. Prime Minister meets Arun Jaitley and Amit Shah a day after defending centre's economic decisions. India and Ethiopia sign agreements on trade, communication and media. President Ramnath Kovind holds wide-ranging talks with his Ethiopian counterpart. US warns Pakistan of diplomatic isolation if it continues support to terror. Defense Secretary says US ready to take whatever steps necessary against Islamabad. Spain's Constitutional Court suspends Catalonia's parliament session in wake of independence push. Court warns Catalan leaders could face criminal action. And FIFA Under-17 World Cup to begin in Delhi from today, hosts India to face formidable US in the opening match. Our top story, the GST Council is set to meet today in the national capital. Now, at the meeting, a decision on the integrated goods and services tax refunds is expected. Now, since 1st of July, over 23 lakh new traders registered for the GST, with 11 lakh dealers under the composition scheme. This took the total number to over 85 lakh, including 62.25 lakh traders who migrated from the old VAT and service tax regime. Now, the council is expected to push through relief measures and calm the jittery businesses complaining about the new tax regime. The panel is also expected to ease exporters' pain by allowing electronic payment of the taxes through virtual currency, while announcing a series of steps for small and medium enterprises as well. And earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting with Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and BJP Chief Amit Shah on Thursday evening. Officials did not say what was discussed in this meeting. It came ahead of the Prime Minister's proposed visit to the poll-bound state of Gujarat on 7th and 8th of October. The meeting also took place a day after the Prime Minister defended his government's economic decisions amid opposition onslaught over slow economic growth. The meeting was significant as Amit Shah, who was scheduled to address a rally in Kerala as a part of his yatra, cut short his trip and he rushed to Delhi. The meeting also came ahead of the crucial GST Council meet today. Now, the Prime Minister has hinted that he was ready for changes in the newly implemented goods and services tax laws. Meanwhile, the World Bank has pointed out that the recent slowdown in India's economic growth is mainly due to the temporary disruptions in preparation for the GST. However, the International Bank also pointed out that in the coming months, the GST is going to have a hugely positive impact on India's economy. Now, in a statement, World Bank President Jim Con Kim said, and I quote him, "We think that the recent slowdown is an aberration, which will correct in the coming months and the GDP growth will stabilize during the year. We've been watching carefully as Prime Minister Narendra Modi has really worked on improving the business environment, and so we think that all of these efforts will pay off as well." And Finance Minister Arun Jaitley would be leading the Indian delegation to the annual meeting of the World Bank next week. In the meet, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund are expected to come out with their new GDP figures and the growth projections for India and the rest of the world. And India and the European Union are working out a roadmap for cooperation for multipolarity in security and investment. At their 14th annual summit, both will discuss ways to improve environment of cooperation on counter-terrorism and also dealing with Pakistan's terror state nexus. Here are the details.
India and European Union will hold their 14th annual summit on Friday in Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, European Council President Donald Francis Tusk and President of the European Commission Jean-Claude Juncker would take part in the bilateral strategic dialogue. Both the Indian and European Union leaders will take stock of the implementation of the EU-India Agenda for Action 2020. Discussions will also focus on enhancing cooperation on counter-terrorism and maritime security. Also on the agenda will be talks on the next steps to relaunch negotiations for a free trade agreement.
India and EU are also strategic partners since 2004. The 13th India-EU summit was held in Brussels on 30th March 2016. The 14th summit aims to deepen the India-EU strategic partnership and advance collaboration in priority areas for India's growth and development.
After the summit, India will launch a special investment facilitation mechanism for EU investors in India. The move will facilitate removal hurdles for the EU in doing business. India's trade with EU totals $88 billion annually. It is also the largest destination for Indian exports. For the last 17 years, EU-based companies have invested around $83 billion, which is almost 24% of the total inflows in that period. India wants to increase the scope for EU investment further for its flagship Make in India mission.
At a time when America is openly criticizing Pakistan for its involvement in the acts of terrorism, European Union is almost silent. Instead, Pakistan and European Union are planning to go in 5 years cooperation agreement from the next year. It will be interesting to see that how India persuades European Union not to encourage Pakistan in a way that encourages terrorism against India. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person Raj Thakur in Delhi.
On to some other news now. President Ramnath Kovind held talks with his Ethiopian counterpart in Addis Ababa on Thursday. The two sides signed agreements on trade, communication and media to boost bilateral ties. The two leaders discussed economic relations between the two countries and also support to Ethiopia in the power, healthcare and education sectors. President Kovind also announced an aid of $195 million in the energy sector and $2 million in the pharma sector. Now, after the talks, President Kovind and Teshome addressed the India-Ethiopia business dialogue, and they released a book titled India-Ethiopia 70 Years of Diplomatic Relations. Ethiopia has been the largest recipient of India's concessional line of credit in Africa with a commitment of over $1 billion.
We will be working closely to develop our trade and investment and people-to-people relations. We will also work together in UN and other multilateral bodies.
To its multifaceted relations with India and the wishes we have to further strengthen the long-standing historical relations between our two countries.
On to some other news now. According to a PTI report, China has maintained a sizable presence of its troops near the site of Doklam standoff with India. The news report, quoting sources, has said that China has even started widening an existing road which is at a distance of around 12 kilometers from the area of conflict. An indication of tension between the two countries due to the presence of Chinese troops in the Chumbi Valley in Doklam Plateau was also given by Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa on Thursday. Now, there has been territorial disputes between India and China as well as between China and Bhutan over Doklam, and India has been staunchly supporting Thimphu over the issue. Troops of India and China were locked in a 73-day-long standoff in Doklam since 16th of June after the Indian side stopped the building of a road in the disputed area by the Chinese army. And echoing the confidence of Army Chief Rawat, Air Chief B.S. Dhanoa on Thursday reiterated that forces were capable of countering China and ready to take on the challenge of a two-front war. Addressing a press conference on the eve of 85th Air Force Day, the Air Chief Marshal said that his forces were ready for a full-spectrum operation. In a major warning to Pakistan, Air Marshal Dhanoa also said that his forces are capable of hitting nuclear sites across the border. But he added that any decision on a surgical strike involving the Air Force has to be taken by the government. The Chief of Air Staff also said that Indian Air Force will achieve a sanctioned strength of 42 fighter squadrons by 2032.
A surgical strike is a decision that has to be taken by the government of India. Indian Air Force has, like I told you, capability to carry out full spectrum of air operations. As far as Air Force is concerned, it is the ability to locate, fix and strike. That is not only with tactical nuclear weapons, it is with any target across the border. Air Force has the capability to locate, fix and strike targets across the border.
News on Pakistan. US Defense Secretary James Mattis has said that President Donald Trump would try to work with Pakistan one more time. But he also warned that the US is prepared to take whatever steps necessary if Islamabad does not change its behavior and continue to support terror groups. Mattis has said this during a congressional testimony on South Asia and Afghanistan on Thursday. He also warned Pakistan of global diplomatic isolation and losing its non-NATO ally status if it failed to dismantle terrorist safe havens on its soil. The US tough talk comes amidst the visit of Pakistan's foreign minister to the United States as part of the country's efforts to rebuild bilateral ties that were affected after President Donald Trump accused Islamabad of sheltering terror groups. President Trump announced his Afghanistan and South Asia policy in the month of August, in which he adopted a tough policy against Pakistan. Meanwhile, the Pakistani army on Thursday said that it is close to take a decision on the mercy petition of Kulbhushan Jadhav, adding that good news will be delivered soon. Jadhav was in April sentenced to death by Pakistan's Field General Court Martial on the charges of his alleged involvement in espionage and sabotage activities against Pakistan. The Pakistan claims that its security forces arrested Jadhav from Balochistan province on 3rd of March last year after he reportedly entered there from Iran. However, India maintains that he was kidnapped from Iran, where he had business interests after retiring from the Indian Navy. India has accused Pakistan of violating the Vienna Convention by repeatedly denying consular access to Jadhav. In a hearing of the case on 18th of May, a 10-member bench of the ICJ had restrained Pakistan from executing Jadhav. Now, Pakistan has said that Jadhav would not be executed until he has exhausted all his mercy appeals. Time for a very short break here. We'll be back with more news. Stay with us.
Jade was popular during Mughal era and gained prominence during Akbar's rule in 15th and 16th century. It came all the way from Iran and Central Asia in attractive colors. The royalty had a unique use for it. Since jade changed color when it came in contact with arsenic, they started utensils like plates, jars, bowls and even hookah with it, and thereby avoided getting poisoned by rivals.
The story we thought we knew. The story of magnificence. The story of bloody battles. Of those who ruled and those who left their footprints. The story charting the course of our past. Talking history on Rajya Sabha TV.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, amid the political turmoil, Banwari Lal Purohit was sworn in as the 25th governor of Tamil Nadu. Banwari Lal Purohit, the former Assam governor, plunged into active politics in the year 1977, and he entered the Maharashtra Assembly for the first time in 1978 by winning the Nagpur East seat. He is also credited with the revival of the Hitavada, an English daily founded by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, the mentor of Mahatma Gandhi. Following the completion of K. Razaiya's term, Rao was given the additional charge of Tamil Nadu in September 2016. And news from the northeast of the country, Ganga Prasad has been sworn in as the new governor of Meghalaya at Raj Bhavan in Shillong on Thursday. The Chief Justice of Meghalaya High Court, Justice Dinesh Maheshwari, administered the oath of office and secrecy to Prasad. Meghalaya Chief Minister Mukul Sangma, including the cabinet ministers and high-ranking officials from the armed forces, were also present on the occasion. The chief minister warmly welcomed the new governor and said that the government looks forward to working together for the development of the state. Ganga Prasad has been appointed as the governor for Meghalaya by President Ram Nath Kovind on 30th of September. The Election Commission has said that it would be logistically equipped by September 2018 to hold simultaneous polls for Lok Sabha and assemblies. The announcement by the poll panel came days after it issued a formal direction that paper trail machines will be used in all future elections where polls are held using EVMs. Now, speaking in Bhopal, Election Commissioner O.P. Rawat said that in response to the centre's query on what it would require for becoming capable of holding simultaneous polls, the panel asked for funds to purchase new EVMs and VVPAT machines. The poll panel also said that it has already placed the order for the purchase of new EVMs and VVPAT machines after receiving funds from the centre. Now, our correspondent Panchana Mishra spoke to Election Commissioner O.P. Rawat on the issue. Let's take a listen.
हमारे साथ बात करने के लिए निर्वाचन आयुक्त हैं O.P. रावत जी। रावत जी, ये बताएं कि लोकसभा और विधानसभा के चुनाव एक साथ कराना क्या ये फिजिबल है और इसको क्या निर्वाचन आयोग इसको सहमति देता है?
फिजिबल अकॉर्डिंग टू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और लॉ अभी तो नहीं है, जब तक नेसेसरी अमेंडमेंट उसमें नहीं हो जाएंगे। लेकिन जहाँ तक इलेक्शन कमीशन के द्वारा चुनाव कराने का संबंध है, हम लोगों का एक ही फैक्टर इसमें कंस्ट्रेंट था, वो है ईवीएम की संख्या। दोनों के चुनाव एक साथ कराने पे डबल इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग मशीन लगेंगी, लोकसभा का एक सेट और विधानसभा का एक सेट। तो करीब 40 लाख ईवीएम और वीवीपैट, क्योंकि अब हर चुनाव वीवीपैट के साथ होना है, तो 40 लाख मशीनों की ज़रूरत है। तो इसके बारे में जब पहली बार हम लोगों से पूछा गया इलेक्शन कमीशन से कि अगर ये साइमल्टेनियसली चुनाव हो तो इसमें क्या होना चाहिए, तो कमीशन ने यही बताया कि अगर पर्याप्त संख्या में ईवीएम वीवीपैट हमारे पास होते हैं तो फिर हम इसको कराने में सक्षम होंगे लॉजिस्टिकल।
लास्ट में जो चुनाव हुए थे, उत्तर प्रदेश का भी था, उसके साथ चुनाव थे, तो उसमें सबसे बड़ा जो एक बात आई विश्वसनीयता को लेकर उठी थी। चुनाव आयोग ने उसको बखूबी सिद्ध किया था कि इसमें विश्वसनीयता में कोई कमी नहीं है। वीवीपैट की बात हुई कि वीवीपैट ज़रूरी हो गया, तो क्या अब उसके बाद से सारा आवंटन हो गया है और मशीनें और जितना जो फंड का आवंटन था वो हो चुका है और उसके लिए कितना तैयार हैं आप?
जी हाँ, वीवीपैट का पूरा आवंटन प्राप्त हो गया और उसके आधार पर ऑर्डर प्लेस हो गए और उसका बनना भी शुरू हो गया, डिलीवरी भी चालू हो गई। तो वी आर वेल प्लेस्ड फॉर दैट।
News from Gujarat now, where the High Court on Thursday rejected Zakia Jafri's petition challenging a clean chit by the Supreme Court monitored SIT to the state's top politicians and bureaucrats in the 2002 Gujarat riots case. The court also did not accept Jafri's allegation of a larger conspiracy behind the riots. Her husband, Ehsan Jafri, a Congress leader, was one of the 69 people killed by rioters who attacked Gulbarg Society in Ahmedabad on 28th of February 2002. The petition filed by Zakia Jafri and the NGO Citizen for Justice and Peace alleged that the then Chief Minister of the state, Narendra Modi, had turned a blind eye to the violence and had sought a criminal trial against the Prime Minister and 58 others. The High Court's Justice Sonia Gokani, while rejecting Jafri's allegations, said that she can move higher forums on the Supreme Court against today's ruling. Jafri's lawyer claimed that the verdict was another setback for his client, who alleged that people involved in the massacre were being allowed to get away.
Honorable Court held that the High Court does not believe the case of the revisionist so far the larger conspiracy is concerned. Secondly, there is no scope for remanding back to the trial court for the further hearing. And third, the right of the victims are kept open in the appellate jurisdiction, as the victims have also preferred the appeals before this Honorable High Court of Gujarat.
Gujarat High Court has partly allowed the revision filed by Zakia Jafri seeking quashment of the order of learned magistrate giving clean chit. We filed revision in High Court. Revision has been partly allowed by saying that the order of the magistrate is illegal to the extent of having no powers of investigation or ordering further investigation.
News from Pakistan, where a suicide bomber blew himself up at a Shia shrine packed with the devotees in Pakistan's Balochistan province, killing at least 18 people and injuring 25 others. The attacker tried to enter the Dargah Fatehpur in Jalmagsi district of Balochistan and detonated his explosive vest when he was stopped by the police. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack. Rescue officials said that the death toll is expected to rise as the blast took place when there was a heavy rush of devotees who had gathered at the shrine to pay their respects. Prime Minister Shahid Khaqan Abbasi condemned the attack. He vowed that his government will act against the terrorists with full might. The attack is the second major strike at a shrine in Balochistan, where in November 2016, at least 52 people were killed at the shrine of Shah Nurani in Khuzdar district. News from Spain now, where in the wake of the latest independence push by Catalonia, the country's constitutional court has now moved, suspending the regional parliament session in which lawmakers were expected to approve a unilateral declaration of independence. The court further warned that Catalan leaders would face criminal action if they ignored the court's order. But Catalan leaders say that the order was against the freedom of expression. The crisis has become one of Spain's most serious tests since the country embraced democracy in the 1970s. With the independence crisis brewing in Spain's Catalonia region, Spain's highest court has suspended next Monday's session of the Catalan parliament. The court said such a move would be a breach of the constitution. Catalan leaders, however, called the ruling as the one that damages freedom of expression. No decision has been taken by the Catalan leaders yet on whether the session would go ahead.
Una vez más, un hecho insólito y de extrema gravedad en un parlamento democrático, y es que el Tribunal Constitucional ha suspendido un pleno.
With an already ugly confrontation escalating fast, economic ramifications are also evident. Two of Spain's biggest banks are already considering moving their headquarters out of Catalonia. Corporate departures could increase if the Catalan parliament declares a unilateral declaration of independence.
Esa incertidumbre, en estos momentos estoy convencido que no hay un solo inversor internacional ni nacional que vaya a ejecutar un proyecto de inversión nuevo en Cataluña. Eso es algo que es evidente hasta que esto se clarifique.
A political and constitutional crisis has gripped the country since Sunday's referendum, in which some 90% of voters backed a split from Spain. The vote was marked by clashes between citizens and Spanish police, in which hundreds of people were injured. Catalan separatists say they are entitled to an independent state because of the region's distinct language and culture. But the vote was decreed by Spanish King Philip VI as disloyalty of Catalan leaders. Central government has also rejected any possible talks. There have been appeals for finding a solution.
El Grup de Barcelona, com a una entitat referents del país, reclama que s'obri un procés de diàleg i negociació per trobar solucions polítiques a la situació que viu Catalunya, des del màxim respecte a la voluntat majoritària de la ciutadania per decidir el seu futur.
It is an extremely volatile situation. Any declaration of independence by the Catalan government would severely test the government of Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy. If Catalan leaders defy the Spanish state in the coming days, it could involve drastic measures such as declaring a state of emergency or martial law. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. News from the United States now, where after the shooting at Las Vegas music concert, the US's National Rifle Association has called for regulations on bump stocks, which is a rapid-fire device used by massacre gunmen. Now, the NRA called on Thursday for regulators to review whether these devices comply with the federal law. This despite NRA being the nation's most prominent lobbyist group against stricter gun regulations. Now, Republicans have said that they would consider banning the tool. Lawmakers plan to hold hearings and consider a bill to outlaw this device. President Donald Trump has also told reporters that his administration would be looking into whether to ban them in the next short period of time. Bump fire stocks, also called bump stocks, allow semi-automatic rifles to fire at a high rate, similar to a machine gun.
Right now, our focus, as we've said over the last couple of days, has been on healing and uniting the country. The investigation still continues to be in very early stages. We know that both members of both parties and multiple organizations are planning to take a look at bump stocks and related devices. We certainly welcome that.
And British author Kazuo Ishiguro, best known for his novel The Remains of the Day, has won the Nobel Literature Prize. The 62-year-old Ishiguro has written 8 books as well as the scripts for television and films. He won the Ban Booker Prize in 1989 for The Remains of the Day. Now, born in Nagasaki in Japan, Ishiguro moved to Britain with his family when he was 5 years of age. Both his first novel, A Pale View of Hills, 1982, and the subsequent one, An Artist of the Floating World, 1986, take place in Nagasaki a few years after World War II. Now, after the announcement, the Swedish Academy said that Ishiguro's writings are marked by a carefully restrained mode and are also independent of whatever events are taking place. The Nobel comes with a prize of $1.1 million. Ishiguro will receive his prize at a formal ceremony in Stockholm on 10th of December.
The Nobel Prize in Literature 2017 is awarded to the English writer Kazuo Ishiguro, who, in novels of great emotional force, has uncovered the abyss beneath our illusory sense of connection with the world. Kazuo Ishiguro won the prize for a very simple reason. He's an exquisite novelist. I would say that if you mix Jane Austen and Kafka, you get Ishiguro in a nutshell. At the same time, having said that, I'd like to emphasize that he is a writer of great integrity. He writes with great integrity and has always done so ever since the very beginning.
On a sports news, in the FIFA Under-17 World Cup will begin from today onwards at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi. Host India will face formidable US in the opening match. India has been drawn into Group A of the World Cup along with the US, Colombia and Ghana. The hosts India will face Colombia on 9th of October and Ghana on 11th of October. 24 teams are taking part in the tournament, and the tournament will conclude on 28th of October. India is hosting the tournament for the very first time, and today's match will start at 8 p.m.
ये देश के लिए खेलना जरूरी है क्योंकि दिस वर्ल्ड कप फर्स्ट टाइम हैपनिंग इन इंडिया, तो एक पता नहीं कब और कभी मिल सकते हैं और नहीं, तो ये पहली बार इंडिया में अंडर-17 वर्ल्ड कप हो रहा है, तो सपोर्टर्स, इंडियन सपोर्टर्स बहुत ज़्यादा सपोर्ट कर रहा है और सेलिब्रिटीज़, तो बस हमारा काम है कि पिच में कल 6 अक्टूबर को हमारा बेस्ट देना.
They're the hardest working teams that we've seen. We played them a little over a year ago here in India, and I don't think the score was indicative of the way they played, the way they compete. Our assumption, without having seen them a lot in the last year, is that they have improved. I know they've done a really, tremendous job here, trying to use a lot of different resources to look at as many players as possible. And so we have to come to this match with a lot of respect for India.
And that's all in this edition of news. But news and updates continue on Rajya Sabha television. Thanks so much for watching.